Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special TechRaptor preview. My name is Christian Buckley, social lead here at TechRaptor. Joining me today is
Andrew Stretch, a content manager, senior content manager. I always forget my own title.
a content manager, just one of the many managers of content here.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't lead off with Hidden One or Assassin or Mystios or one of the many names.
Confused.
What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Assassin's Creed Mirage. I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to have a chance to sit down and play the game. Got to check out three different portions of it. One, what I can only assume is the very beginning of the game, which is Basim as a street urchin, street rat, going around stealing stuff from people, a wannabe assassin, him going through his initiation and training, and then finally him as an assassin going out on a mission to track down to investigate and track down the location of the mysterious treasurer.
Interesting. Now, do you have much experience with Assassin's Creed? Because a big thing with this game is it's marking 25 years, right? Like it's the anniversary year of Assassin's Creed. So tell me a little bit about your history with the series and your excitement for this one, I guess, leaving off the RPG entries.
Yeah, so I got into Assassin's Creed with the original game and with the PSP port,
Oh,
the PSP game. Played all of the Ezio games that were incredible. I think that's really where the franchise was just absolutely at its peak.
yeah, agreed.
From there, I played a little bit of Unity. I didn't get as much into Syndicate, and I tried to pick it up again with Origin and with Odyssey. I've probably put a good 10, 15 hours into both of those, but they just never grasped me as much as the original, which is why I was so excited to hear when Assassin's Creed Mirage was coming back. We're going back to some more ancient times, and not only that, but we're also going back to the basics, getting rid of the gear score. This is like the traditional Assassin's Creed experience. I wouldn't want to say retro, but I guess it is if we're celebrating a 25th anniversary.
Yeah. So I'm very similar to your experience with Assassin's Creed. I would consider myself, despite having played probably either half or less than half of the series in full now, like these days, a big fan of Assassin's Creed. Specifically, came up with the series when it was first starting, like with one, the Ezio games, three. We're going back to a city as like a character almost in one of these games. The way it's portrayed to you, the way you interact with it compared to what I know about Valhalla. I didn't mess with that one at all, but going to like the cities in Greece in Odyssey, does it feel at all like it's more limiting compared to what your experience has been with the more open, massive RPGs like Origins and Odyssey, going back to a smaller scale like this?
A lot of the time in the larger ones, especially early on, I found that I was doing a lot of travel. There wasn't much happening, and it was just a lot of getting from point A to point B. For the small parts that I did try, first I was in the small city of Anbar, and then later I was in Baghdad. It felt like the benefit of getting back to a smaller space was that things were closer together. When I was having to get from point A to point B, go from speaking with a friend who's a merchant back to speaking with the master assassin to then going out to the bazaar in Baghdad. It never felt like a large chore to move to any of these locations. I only personally took a brief look at kind of the overarching map. It looks like it's really just going to be like the cities and some of the outside area, but that could have been limited based on what I had seen. Yeah, it's not to the point where it's like the little section worlds like they were in 2, but it's as if you took the open world and you just kind of condensed it. I don't,
Cool.
not as much shrunk. I think that there's still going to be as much there. It's just going to be the smaller scale.
So trading in, I guess, breadth for more dense things to do in a city.
Yeah.
Cool. Does this feel like it is picking up where Syndicate and Unity, I guess, because that was the one you had experience with, left off? Just like we didn't skip a beat, or does it feel like they are building off of some of the ideas they had, bringing in some of the elements from Origins and Odyssey that you experienced so far, or does this really feel like, hey, we are fully committing back to the roots, OG series, period?
Gameplay wise, it really feels like the original in the combat. Instant stealth assassinations. I even toyed around with seeing how many people I could antagonize and then parry off of, in the same way that you'd kind of end up with a circle of enemies, as Ezio, and you'd just wait for all of them to slowly come at you one by one. So you can still do the parry instant kill, but now the enemies no longer come at you politely one at a time.
Sure.
So if you have 2 or 3 enemies, you're still going to be able to parry and kill to a competent extent, but there's still that level of danger that was in Odyssey and Origins, and Valhalla, that if you're not equipped to take on 5 people, and like really as an assassin you shouldn't be, that you're gonna have a bad time. The rest of it still remains very faithful to the original. Obviously on a next gen system, loading screens are better, the graphics are better. There's more interactability in the world. It's not like you'd see in the earlier games that all of the other people in the world are just kind of mannequins on a small route kind of situation. I could definitely see that a lot in the bazaar, one of the locations from the third part of the demo that I checked out. It was really quite cool how they used a open air but indoor bazaar space to, even in the brief time that I had been playing the game, running around on rooftops, using zip lines, the regular kind of tricks that you would use to get around as an assassin for that investigation portion.
How has stealth been? Because I know in your preview you touch on the fact that it's very nice to have an assassination be an assassination again, but is the stealth does it feel like the AI is responsive enough to the point where you have to think through the routes you're taking, or does it still feel, old games at this point, but like with Brotherhood, it's like, yeah, you can
fudge it a bit. Yeah. One of the encounters that I did go through was, there was a small outpost of, section of buildings with a road in the middle. And there was, I think that I was pretty competent in that section of, getting some good stealth in, remembering to whistle to call guards over to lure them away from their friends. In the upgrade tree for the bird, just like in Origins and Odyssey, you've got a bird companion that can not only target people, but you can also use it later on to show you the walking paths as well. So you'll be able to, that you can really gamify if you want it. Mm-hmm. But if you just want to go around and suss out a situation and kill some people, you can definitely do that as well.
Yeah, I gotta say, I love the inclusion of the bird drone in these recent games. That's one of my favorite things they added to that. Just the fact that you can scope out a base and use your eagle to mark your enemies. That's such a great addition. I'm glad to see that's here too. So what would you say, from your experience, the focus is? It seems like these missions were handpicked to highlight the different systems of the game, but do you see a world where you could have approached these missions in a different sort of, I don't want to say guns blazing because you're using knives, but could you go into that base just daggers out, or?
Definitely. It seems like there's that level of, try what you want with all of these situations, with the investigation aspect especially, gathering different pieces of information on who the treasurer was, why they were at the bazaar, what other information you could gather. Mm-hmm. And then it was also depending on whether I did or did not have certain items that I could have picked up through the investigation. It then opened up different opportunities to get into a spot where I could perform the assassination. In this case, there was a specific pin that if I had access to, then I could walk in through behind the scenes doors to get to my quarry versus trying to find them elsewhere.
Compared to my memory of the more classic Assassin's games, I don't think they give you that level of planning. It kind of reminds me of
mostly very linear.
Yeah, I'm sure not to the same extent because these are sort of full-blown immersive sims in a way, but like it kind of reminds me of the IO Hitman, where you get the more you put in, the easier it should be to get to your target stealthily. So that's very exciting to hear personally.
And in like trying to discover where this MacGuffin item was, what surprised me the most is, as a character, as Basim walks into the auction portion of the bazaar and sits down and it comes up to auction, if I had enough money, I could have just bid for it. Like,
I love that.
There's a whole bunch of like stealthing, because I didn't have the money, I needed to run up onto the balcony and steal it and then try to get away without anyone looking at me. But, the idea of, if I'd been playing to this point and I had X amount of currency in my bag, it's just like, oh yeah, I'll just buy it instead, and then I'll use that as my invitation to speak to the person who's actually after it.
That's super cool. I'm very curious to see in the full release how extensive that goes and what other scenarios they give you that ability in, because that does seem like a solid evolution of that more classic approach to Assassin's Creed, where it's like, well, I can go in and just fight everybody, or I can like go around the back and climb up and get in. So that's cool. I love hearing that. I know this game is a prequel to Valhalla, but any ties so far to the greater Assassin's Creed timeline or the relation to Valhalla you can pick up on?
So we know it's a prequel, but it's also a sequel. I did have to do some digging in to figure out where this all fell into place. But Basim is not only a character who is present in Valhalla, but he's also a character present in the present day.
Right.
And then part of the final conversation that William Miles, the father of Desmond Miles, had was to like a bargain to get his blood so that they could sample it, so that they could go into the Animus with it. There was no level of present day stuff in the demo that I tried out.
So with the immediate story then, and seeing Basim's origin, like, is that intriguing to you so far? Like the cast of characters, like his mentor, and seeing his introduction to what is the Order of Assassins, but they're calling the Hidden Ones here.
Really didn't get much of the story. The parts that I did get to see, I really enjoyed. I thought the relationship between Basim and his street urchin friend Neha were really interesting. Like, they immediately launched in with good conversation, they had a really good rapport, which kind of made me feel like I understand these characters, I know who they are just from the get-go. But then past that, seeing him go through and develop and become an assassin, I'd look forward to doing that the slow way rather than the hop, skip, jump that I got.
So I guess before you played the game, you were hopeful as a fan of Assassin's Creed and, hoping they would touch base again with the origins. After the preview, what's the excitement level? Are you looking forward to diving in? Is your faith being rewarded so far, do you think?
I definitely, because of, being not as much of a fan of the RPG, like the heavy gear score kind of RPG mechanics of Assassin's Creed, I just haven't had a desire to return to the franchise, where, to pull a very overused quote, where it had my I've forgotten the quote. Where I was interested before, it now has my attention.
There you go.
I now, definitely want to play it, to check it out, to get into what will be a nostalgic Assassin's Creed experience.
For sure. And it's going to be a busy fall, and seeing Assassin's Creed come back this way is promising for me. And it's hearing what you have to say about it is definitely making me want to find time in my fall gaming schedule for this because it sounds very, very promising. So, were there any other things that stood out to you from your preview that you wanna mention? Obviously, if people want to see your full preview, you can check it out right now over on TechRaptor.net, linked in the description of this video. But yeah, any other things that stood out to you that we haven't talked about today?
I guess the only other thing would just be, and I always forget to bring it up because I barely ever use them, but the Assassin's tools. There was a fun bevy of tools that were available. I literally, in the demo, I was crawling around trying to figure out the best way to enter a space with 3 guards and then the main guy that I needed to kill. And it was actually my fantastic demoist that was sitting with me and helping me, guide through the segments. It was like, oh, you can also use tools. I'm like, of course. So like a quick noisemaker off to the side and then a smoke bomb into the center of the action really helped for a quick entry and a quick exit. That was a lot of fun. Very hectic.
One of my favorite ones in the Ezio games is the just throw a fistful of cash into a crowd and they all pick it up. Is that in here? Do they got the money throw?
I'm not sure. I believe it was, but don't quote me on that.
Cool. Well, Serge, thank you for sitting down and getting me hyped up on Assassin's Creed Mirage. This is another thing I'm gonna have to play this year. Any closing remarks for the fine folks at home?
No, it's just this is if you're a fan of the original Assassin's Creed formula, but you've kind of drifted off, find yourself a good primer on what the big story elements are, because this is definitely going to be continuing on from those. But this is something to look forward to for sure.
All right, great. Well, sounds good to me. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time.